Welcome to Career Insights with Ambition, the podcast where we delve into leaders' moments of truth that shape their careers and the businesses they work in. I'm your host, Chris Crolla, and each month we sit down with leaders to uncover the untold stories of their journey to success. Don't miss the next episode. Follow or subscribe wherever you listen. Hello and welcome to Career Insights with Ambition. I'm Chris Crolla. Today we are joined by Kamal Singh. Kamal is the COO, newly appointed, of Returnit. We've worked together for quite a while now. Placed Kamal in our first role here in Australia. Kamal started her career in EY in London before moving to BT. Kamal has an interesting story in actually securing sponsorship with EY when she was working, when she was doing her degree, and in her spare time, Kamal likes to do boxing, going to the gym, and traveling, as well as spending time with friends and family. Have I missed anything, Kamal?
No.
Covered you. Good. Look, obviously we've known each other quite a while now. You obviously started in finance, and I want to understand what it was that made you quite passionate about finance and exploring that space, and then moving into your operations role, which you're in now. So what was it that made you get into finance in the beginning anyway?
I've always been really, passionate about business and driving meaningful outcomes. And I suppose, earlier, as early as it can be, I knew that I wanted to lead a business one day. And so for me, stepping into accounting was a bit of a strategic decision, because I really wanted to understand financials, the P&L, and what are the levers that basically drive the performance. Because ultimately, I don't think that you can do well in a business if you don't have a strong grasp of the numbers. It's not just about the reporting, but the thing that I find fascinating is understanding the reasons why something has happened, and really getting down to the operations and the business. So accounting gave me, that link to operations, really understanding the levers to be able to drive far better financial outcomes, and then being able to make better decisions as a result of it.
We see and hear of it so often, that curiosity around the numbers and where they come from really sets candidates on such a good career path. The operations role that you're in now, the COO role that you've done so well to get, within that role, what is it that is your main challenge at the moment? What's curious to you in that role?
So we were brought out by a private equity company 3 years ago. And so my biggest challenge, or my biggest focus and priority right now, is to get leaner. So how do we do more with less, essentially? We're in this part of this, the stage of the business that we're at, where the market itself is stagnating. At the start of our journey, we were driving pretty good top line numbers, where we're getting lots of customers returning their 10-cent bottles and cans. Now we're starting to see that slow down quite considerably because of that, coupled with the fact that costs are getting higher and higher. So everything from labor to even our lease costs. So that's had quite a big impact. And so we're really looking at driving efficiencies and looking at areas of opportunity where we can drive a reduction in cost.
Yep.
I think actually my background in finance and accounting is what makes me better. It allows me to do far better in this role than ever, really.
Yeah. The understanding of the margins and everything will definitely stand you in good stead there. I think every business, right, they want to run as lean as possible, and they want to make as much money as possible. So you are in a very important and challenging role there, Kamal. But when we first placed you there, you started on a working holiday visa. What advice would you give to maybe people listening that are in that position who have started on a working holiday visa and who are maybe looking for sponsorship, or any ideas around that?
Look, I think the main thing is, work hard and show the business the value that you can provide. It's a big cost for a business to go to sponsor somebody, and so they want to know that they're making that investment for somebody who is who's committed that it's going to be somebody who genuinely works really hard and appreciates that gesture from the business.
Yeah, definitely. I think having coming in and making an impact, like as you said, like making sure that the business knows what the return they're getting as well. Like it's an investment
Yeah.
as well, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
you've got so many achievements in your short career to date. I mean, relatively short. What are you most proud of?
For me, it's around leadership. So as I've sort of come into this role and the operations role, and I suppose really leading a large team, the thing for me is been just to really provide the clarity, the direction, and the accountability in what is, I guess, a complex and a pretty fast moving environment. And then genuinely seeing that translate into, real outcomes so that, we've got stronger team, we all work well together, delivering better results, and I guess, making an impact across, I suppose, Return in particular. We've had some, or I've led some, I suppose, challenging and transformation sort of initiatives. Everything from relocating sites to financial sort of turnarounds to deploying new technologies where we've sort of launched an online sort of collection service for bottles and cans if customers don't want to come to our sites. And over the past 5 years, as we've grown quite a lot, we've had to, I suppose, really shift and change the business. So it started off as being quite reactive, where, you're just firefighting every day as you're starting to set a new business up, and every state went live at different times as well. For me, it's been really to change the organization from what was a reactive to a more, strategic, aligned, a performance driven business. So it's about, I suppose, bringing order to chaos in a bit of a, in a high pressured environment, and always making sure that I do that through a focus on people and the purpose, and being really clear on what we're trying to achieve, but then being able to let the teams step up and, and build ownership and capability within the team to do that. Because as you know, there's nothing that you can do by yourself. You need the people around you to drive those outcomes.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on the people part, as you mentioned. A sense of belonging in the workplace is seen as one of the major components of getting the best results and getting the most out of people. Like, how do you, I guess, what do you or the business do to create that sense of belonging within the business?
So, our motto is, people, planet, profit.
Okay.
I've not actually worked in a business where people have been more passionate about what they do.
Yeah. Good.
And so, the piece that we've really stemmed upon is the purpose. And so why we're here. And then in terms of creating that culture where people feel, empowered to make decisions, but at the same time, they're really highly accountable. So it's the empowerment and the accountability culture that we consistently try and drive. With that, it's about creating an environment where they feel as though they can make a decision and they can make mistakes, right? It's being able to do that.
Yeah, good.
And not feeling as though it's that if they make a mistake, that's it. Let's understand why that happened. What can you learn? And then let's make sure that we readjust to make sure that that doesn't happen. So so for me, that's what it's all about. It's to create that culture, but at the same time, I suppose the other final piece is we have state teams. The big thing that I try and drive with the team is that actually we're all part of one team. Whilst they might work within their own state and they might look after their own patch, it's about working together as a team and being there to support and help each other, no matter what the challenges are, and take the best practice and learnings, and not being judgmental, and actually being curious about why certain things are happening and asking the right questions, rather than going, oh, well, such and such over there, it's crazy how they run their business and how they run their operations. I'm doing it really well over here, without actually understanding the reasons why. Yeah, for me, it's just about really driving that empowerment, accountability model, but having the support as well of the people and the team around them.
Yeah, good. And I guess like people that are getting into your business are going to naturally, or I guess partially even, passionate about the recycling and the environment and everything like that, which obviously helps,
Yeah.
What was the moment of truth in your career that has led you to where you are today?
It's actually around the people. Yeah, the thing for me, especially when you're leading large teams, to be able to, what I spoke about it before, just around driving real and long lasting impact. It's not actually about the technical skills. Well, it is, you have to have the right skill sets, but it's around the culture and the behaviors and the leadership that shapes it. I suppose for me, I started focusing rather than fixing problems. I suppose I started to build on systems and teams that prevent them. And so, it was about creating the conditions where people can thrive and they can succeed. I suppose the moment of truth for me was to have a leadership style that focused on driving purpose, providing the clarity, and having a really relentless focus on that people performance and progress.
Mm. And what was the moment that the penny dropped? Like, what was it that led you on that path?
For me, it was stepping into the operations role. So as you move from finance into operations, I remember, the first couple of days, couple of weeks, I was getting close to 50, 60 phone calls a day. And it was sort of like, whoa, you don't experience that when you're in finance, or while I didn't anyway. And so it was just a real shift and transition for me. And it was to think through, okay, well, there's a large team and what's the best way to lead and manage them? Because there's a lot of people that, I suppose are looking up to you to lead them. And it was then that I had to really work through, well, who is it that I stand for as a leader? What's my style? What's my core principles? And how am I going to lead that team? And so it was really then when the penny dropped for me to go, actually, I really need to step back and really think through what's my style.
Yeah, good. You mentioned previously as well, like having that grounding in finance and obviously learning from good leaders in your time as well, and then being able to adapt each part of them. You're obviously pretty thankful that finance was there as a grounding and as a base for you to lean off, and it's giving you really good grounding, as you've mentioned, for where you are now. If there's people in finance that are listening that want to take a step out, whether it's into operations or whether it's into strategy, like, is there any advice you would have for them around that?
Yeah, look, I think I had a mentor years ago who's really good in terms of actually stepping for me, because when is the right time to make that transition and how should I be as prepared as I can be for that transition. One of the key things that I did when I moved from EY into BT, I took roles that were pretty varied and pretty different. So I worked in sort of 4 different finance roles. So one was, working with the sales teams. One was working with, a product and marketing team. One was where we just recently acquired a business. So it was working through how you transition them into the overall business. And then the final one was working with one of the commercial directors. And so it was me trying to tick off as many different skill sets and working with as many different parts of the business as I possibly could to be able to get the experience and to see things from different lenses, because I think you can come into it, you can work with different people and you might have a particular way about how things should be run or how they should be managed, but actually you don't get to understand fully their perspective until you work with them. So that was really critical, and that was one of the things that we discussed, is to go, how do you go through? There's some roles you might have to go sideways or backwards. It's not always about moving up in a role. It's about gaining the different skill sets to be really prepared. And then it's really just knowing what you want to do, why you want to do it, and being able to carve, I suppose, that path. And I always took roles that scared me.
Good, yeah.
Always took roles that scared me, and they're the ones that develop you the most, and it's always believing in yourself to know that I'm going to figure this out. It might seem really scary at the start, but use the people around you and the network around you to actually help you to get from A to B. Because when I moved from the finance to the operations role, just an example, safety. That's not something that I knew much about. I had people that reported into me for safety, and actually I had to then lead them and go, I actually don't know much about safety. And so it's also about being vulnerable and actually being really upfront and honest. I was actually really honest with the safety team and said, actually, I don't know too much. Can you just give me a rundown of exactly how it worked? And, I remember talking to the safety manager at the time, and he was like, I actually really appreciated that. I really appreciated you just being honest. And, not bluffing your way through it. It's just about, being confident in your own ability, but knowing that there's gaps, and how do you use the network and the people around you to fill some of those gaps too.
That's awesome. I mean, it's a really a theme on this sort of podcasting series is around believing in yourself and doing roles that you're scared to do. Like, that's how you grow, right? And I absolutely love that part. I love the part as well about partnering with different areas of the business, because, well, you get a sense of what it is that actually interests you and what you actually want to do, but you're also exposing yourself to people and showing how competent you are. It's always easier to get an internal opportunity by not having the exact skill set than it is to come in externally and get that opportunity. So, and I'm always encouraging the guys here at Ambition to do that as well.
Yeah.
We've got a plethora of words of wisdom so far, but is there any words of wisdom that you have left in you that you'd like to give the next generation coming through?
I actually had three key things. I suppose the first one was, and it sounds silly, but it's kind of like know your craft, but lead with purpose. So, as I said, it's the technical side of the work is really important, but it's the ability to be able to not just lead but influence and connect with others that ultimately will define how well you do and what impact you make. Challenge the status quo, be curious. Whether you're early in your career, just don't be afraid to just ask, why are we doing it this way? And actually be brave enough to ask that question. The final one would be to just back yourself. You might not always have the answers. No one does. But, stay curious, stay humble, and, stay true to your values. You'll find a path. And more importantly, you'll help others find their path too. So
good. Well, look, thank you for joining us. I've really loved all your perspectives, all your words of wisdom, especially the be humble and be curious, and especially the business partnering piece as well. Love the advice you've given on doing something that scares you, that challenges you. I think that was really good advice to end on as well. So best of luck in your COO role. You definitely won't need it, but you'll be fantastic in it, and great to see you. And that is all for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
That concludes another insightful episode of Career Insights with Ambition. If you've been inspired by today's conversation, share it with a friend or leave us a review and subscribe to the podcast. Until next time, keep leading with ambition and turning your moments of truth into milestones for success. All right, cool. Career Insights with Ambition, brought to you by Ambition, a specialist recruitment agency committed to building better futures for organisations we work for and the professionals we help. Subject matter experts in accounting and finance, banking and financial services, technology and transformation, we're here to help. Find out more at ambition.com.au.